Hey everyone, and welcome to the Run Diaries. We're back for another episode this week, and we're pretty blessed because we've got a pretty special guest on the show today, and that's our man Ky Wynne from Athletes Edge Physio, and also obviously we have our co-host, the Foz Man. Welcome to you both.
Awesome, thanks, Cozzy. I'm pumped for this one. Got the main man on tonight with Ky, so looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely.
Cheers,
Ky, welcome, mate.
Yeah, cheers, legends. I've been listening to the first few episodes, really enjoying the new direction of the show and really enjoying the content. So stoked to be invited on and stoked to have a chat with you guys and see where we go.
Sounds good, mate. So look, we wanted to kick off really by, as people might have heard in our previous episode when we spoke about the journey that you've been on in terms of business. We really want to hear like where the idea came from, and what direction you decided to take with it. So yeah, give us the scoop, mate.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and I appreciate the plug last week. I reckon we got a couple down from listening to you guys to come get the coffee and get some of Nonna's biscotti. So we had a good time at the opening last weekend, and thanks, Foz, for popping down. And yeah, thanks both of you for coming in last week. Look, I think it's been really exciting last couple of weeks for me. We've opened up the new facility in Caulfield North. You know, there's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to kind of get to this point. And I think the bit that's been nice for me over this period is showcasing everyone the work we've put in, but also reflecting on the process to get here, and kind of why we ended up where we did, and the systems we've put in place, and the foundations that I think, link in with a lot of the stuff you guys are talking about on the episodes, and I suppose the goals for us in the short term and the long term. And I suppose my background, and some of your listeners might be familiar with some of the stuff I've done, but my background is as a physio, exercise scientist, an educator. I work at postgraduate level. I'm dabbling in a bit of running related research and kind of juggling a few hats. And I suppose for the last 3 to 5 years, probably 4 to 5 years, my clinical interest has been in, and kind of specialty area has been in working with endurance runners, and primarily lower limb injuries. And I've been very blessed to work at some really good sports medicine clinics, work under some excellent physiotherapists, work under some excellent sports medicine professionals, and have links into, some different sporting environments, including some elite sporting environments. And I suppose over the journey of that, in healthcare and physio and probably business, you get to a point where you reach a ceiling and you go, what's my next step? Where am I going to take it? Being the driven sort of person I am, I suppose I kind of reached a point where I go, I've got to try something a little bit different. And either that's me going into something completely different, or it's me, taking some of the ideas that I think work really well and building into something of my own. So look, we've been very lucky with the process. It took a lot longer to get here than we thought, as you guys know, but stoked to open the doors and be 2 weeks in. So yeah, great to talk about it, and I appreciate you guys providing a platform.
Mate, glad to hear it, and looking forward to where it's going to go. So when did the idea first come about? Like, when was its genuine inception, do you think?
Yeah, so there's actually a pinpoint moment that my business partner and I Athletes Edge is founded by another physio, Emma Hoy, who's a really good physio, and also a gun triathlete as well, and myself. And we both graduated our physiotherapy, doctor of physiotherapy about 10 years ago, and we've been in touch, but there's a kind of a distinct time point around 2 years ago where we caught up for a coffee and said, where are we both at? What are we doing with our career? And we both were at a similar point going, well, we've reached a ceiling for where we're at, where we're not sure what the next step is. We both had really similar ethos around empowering athletes and the mentality that we worked with, and, the benefit of data and the need to have strong systems and strong performance testing, et cetera. And so we loosely started 2 years ago, and then we've got a photo from December 2014, which was the first time we sat down and started the business plan on Google Docs. And there's a photo floating around somewhere of that moment, which was really cool. It's kind of, that's when Athletes Edge was essentially born in, I don't know, probably the 20th of December, 2014. And,
Wow.
and since then it's been a long process. And I don't know if anyone out there listening has started a small business, but there's a lot of process that goes into it. And depending on how picky you are with certain things, we were very selective around the area we wanted to be in, the space we wanted to have, because we, for those that have come down to Athletes Edge, that have seen, we've got a good gym space. We've crafted a facility that we think is a really welcoming, really kind of exciting space. And so we're very picky with that. It probably took us 6 months, maybe 8 months to find the space. And then for anyone who's been involved in a fit out with builders and costs and timelines, and Cozzy's smiling there because he knows what I'm talking about, that takes a lot longer than you think. And it also costs a fair bit more than you think. So that kind of ended up leading us to the point where we are now, where we kind of just opened the door, started July, when maybe we thought we'd be here, 3 to 6 months earlier. But that's life, and there's a lot of silver linings out of it.
Ky, I'd
How
love to
good.
see that photo of you and Emma in 2014. Like maybe put it up in Athletes Edge somewhere.
That's a great idea. It should go in the tea room, I reckon. I hadn't thought about that, but actually I like that idea. I'll take you up on it, I think.
That's the history. I love. Was that like end of uni, or like right at the end of uni days, or in that period?
No, so I mean we've been out a while now. We're kind of we're about 10 years out now, so we're probably 8 years into our career when we sat down for that. But it's a couple of years ago now, almost a couple of years ago now, and I'll probably look a little bit less tired, a little bit more fresh faced in it, which is good. But it is an iconic sort of moment, and I'm glad that my wife just had the foresight to capture it and kind of signpost it in time.
So I just want to go back. So you said that. So you say 2 years ago. So 2024.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, 2024. Okay, cool. I just want to check. Wow. So yeah, and so to be honest, though, that's like still a pretty short turnaround from idea to inception.
Yeah, I think it depends on how you look at it. I mean, for me, it's felt a while because we've been grinding in the background with it for a while. But things have moved fast in some sense, and the time I don't think has been wasted. For those that walk into the space can tell we've put work into thinking about how we want it to be, thinking about our systems. And then, for those like Foz who've been involved in some of the performance testing, can understand that, we've got science and data behind what we do. And we've thought about the systems and the protocols. So look, I think the lesson for me from all of this is that, there was always going to be a lead time, and we could have kind of sat and let that slide. But it's a good lesson to go, use the opportunity given to you for a variety of different things. And we've managed to use that from a business setting and from a networking setting. And then, also some non-business aspects that have been really beneficial as well. So that's one of the learnings from me from this whole process is how you actually utilize the time and how you deal with the setbacks that come with a big, long project like this has been.
What do you think were some of kind of the biggest lessons that you learned from that 2-year journey? Just give me two.
Well, it's interesting. The first one, anyone who's thinking of starting a business is just probably add 50 to 100% to the budget that you were planning. There's the first one. Just nothing ever sticks to the budget. And I think a few people that were involved in the process early from an advisory perspective maybe undersold that intentionally to kind of get my excitement up a little bit with it maybe. But I'm definitely not unhappy with the result. But so I think the other lessons are about trusting the process a little bit, getting good people in your corner, and leveraging the connections and networks. So I've been really lucky to be able to link up with good people who've known good people. And I think you can't undersell the relationship building and how important that is in all elements of life. But in business and starting business, it's often that extra person that will introduce you to somebody else that can provide really good solution or that can provide really good advice. And so for me, I think it's probably the relationships that I've built and the understanding of how that works in business, which has been really kind of invaluable skills. Yes, there's all the technical bits and there's the reps that we did on the walls, painting and all this sort of stuff. But I think probably that side of the business, which I'd never really been exposed to, has been really interesting. And I think those skills are the ones I'm really keen to build on as the business grows and expands.
So good, mate. And I guess looking ahead now, you've already got you've had your launch. When was your launch specifically? What date was that?
Yeah, so we had our kind of soft launch week from the 13th of July, and then we had our launch on the 18th of July, and really good day for those that came down. We probably had a couple of hundred people through. We had one of my mates on spinning some tunes on the decks. We had the coffee cart. It was a good time. Bit of 2 times you sponsored a bit of a few giveaways, and we had a good time. So we're kind of almost 2 weeks into doors being open, and we've been blown away by feedback, blown away by the support. And as I was saying to you guys before, I had a full afternoon this afternoon of runners coming in for, prep for Melbourne Marathon, prep for Sydney Marathon, and really exciting sort of stuff.
Hey, Kyle,
and then
I was
sorry, as you go.
This side of town, I don't really see many places similar to the Athletes Edge. I know is it the running room in South Yarra? Something similar, but the way you've set it up, it's brilliant. Did you have an idea of how you wanted it to look, and what did that look like before you kind of got things going?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think part of the decision for this was both Emma and myself are both very comfortable in what we're good at and understanding. I think I'm biased with this in all elements of life. I don't think you can be good at everything, and anyone who tries to be a generalist ends up being not that specialized in anything. And so you're much better off being really comfortable that your specialist area or your skill set is as good as anyone around, or, and being comfortable and leaning into that rather than going, we're going to service everything, right? And so for us, we're very comfortable in our skill set going, we are confident in working with endurance athletes, with longer term rehab, with performance testing, working on taking people who want to put in work to get towards their goals and really map that out. And so there are different businesses and different individuals and clinics who do great things similar to this around. And I think there's probably not that many places that are trying to put it all together in the same way that we've done. There definitely are. You mentioned the running room. There's some good people there. And there's definitely other businesses around that do it. We think we do a lot of the things as well as a lot of these other businesses. And a lot of that's based off our expertise and the time we've put into systems. And then as you've experienced, Foz, some of the kit that we've got in there as well for the strength and performance testing and the equipment. So, we definitely scoped out the area to find an area that we thought serviced a need and fit a demand. And I hope that we've hit that mark. Time will tell, I think, with business.
It's perfect. You've nailed even the logo and everything, Ky. It's it just looks, it's pristine.
No, I appreciate it, mate. Lots of road testing with all of this, which is, kind of the fun, exciting part of the process. And getting feedback from like that is really nice. I appreciate it.
Smells like a new car in there.
I hope it lasts forever. I might have to get one of those. Keep getting the air fresheners to hang off the roof when the smell fades of the fresh paint and fresh fittings.
So good, mate. So good. And I guess segueing into, obviously, we've just come off Gold Coast Marathon. So you just mentioned you're seeing a lot of runners. What are some of from a more general sense, what have been some of the most common things you've seen, not just post Gold Coast, but obviously you're treating a lot of runners. What are some of the most common injuries or niggles you're seeing?
Yeah, it's a good point and a good question. And I think at the moment, there's a lot of people in the bulk of, marathon prep or racing season, and we're kind of deep into that. So everyone's typically high load or lots of races or about to get into a race or just finished a race. And you guys are both examples. of that. And so the nice thing, I think, with some of our messaging and promotion and also some of my connections, I've had a big percentage of runners coming in wanting to improve performance, wanting to work on screening and wanting to work out on things beyond just injury, which I think is huge scope for a lot of runners out there to look at, what can we do before we get injured, or what can we do to prevent getting injured or improve performance. So that's kind of one arm of what we do, and one arm that I'm really passionate about, not just working on putting out the fire, but also, can we stop getting to the point where we actually have an injury, and can we improve our performance? But the second bit, I think, is this time of year, we start seeing a lot of the load-related injuries pop up, purely because everyone's, especially if you're either finishing a marathon block or you're entering a marathon block, your loads are typically either ramping up or they've been really high. So we see grumpy tendinopathies re-flare up. We see a lot of, we always see knee-related pain because it's the number one in running, and statistically it is, and then clinically I see that a lot. And unfortunately, around this time, because the Ks are ramping up and people are chasing the missed sessions and the missed Ks, we also see stress fractures start to pop up a bit. And that's just the nature of running, and unfortunately some of the running culture, whether it be the high loads and pushing the loads, whether it be nutritional considerations. But they're probably the ones you see a lot at this time because of where we are in the racing calendar or the marathon prep calendar. Everyone's trying to get the Ks in, or they're chasing the missed Ks, right?
That's it, man. That's it. And I know that I know I've been a victim of that, and I'm sure, Foz, you would concur. So just thinking about some of the things to look out for, you mentioned, some of the areas of the body that are being hit the most. So I guess more so from a training load perspective, as that's one of the issues that commonly comes up at this time where people are chasing Ks. What are some of the things that athletes could be looking out for? I know that watch data and Strava data is sometimes not super accurate, depending on if you're using, if you're wearing it to sleep, if you're tracking sleep, if you're tracking certain metrics. I guess, what are some of the metrics and trends to look out for, and which data what types of data can we trust?
Yeah, it's a good question, good consideration. And I'd be interested to know what Foz tracks with his athletes that he coaches as well, because I think there's so many metrics out there and so much data these days. And I suppose I break it down into a couple of things that people should consider. And when I'm educating, whether it be athletes or health professionals or coaches, one of the key things is, and a lot of runners are doing this to varying degrees, we've got to monitor our total training load in some capacity, right? And what that looks like is highly variable. And that can be as simple as some people just monitoring that on Strava or their training plans. And then you can obviously get very in depth and monitor your workload and have it mapped in depth. And I think when we look at the load, there's a couple of bits that are relevant. Everyone kind of knows around, or everyone's heard the 10% per week, and maybe we circle back to that of how much or not that's backed up by science. But there are some studies out there that have looked at how much change is a worry. If you're chasing Ks, what's a risk? What should we be wary of? And one particular study by Franston from last year, which has kind of been quite popular online, looked at the changes in a runner's long run over the past month. And then I think this is important for a lot of runners listening, because it's not that difficult to keep a rough eye on this. But they found that they kind of broke it into different categories of how much did your long run increase relative in that week compared to your previous long run over the past month, right? And if it was kind of between 1 to 10% increase in your long run, there was no statistical injury risk increase. And then they looked at above 10% compared to your longest run in the previous month. And they found that if you jumped kind of more than that 10 to 30% range, if you increased your long run, there was a 64% increase in injury risk. And then, if you go to 100% of your long run and double your long run, the injury risk was even higher again. Now, we don't have to necessarily stick to that as a recipe, but what that study showed, and there was a big cohort of data for this, which is why it's a popular study, that we've got to look at not only our weekly training load, but we probably also have to look at the long run session and how well you've been going with your long runs over the past month, and make sure that you're not going from a long run of, say, 12 kilometers to jump to that 20K long run that you want to do if you haven't necessarily built up to it or done the work. And so I think that's one part of the training load, and you can measure that with kilometers, or you can measure that with time, and that's important to consider. The other part, I think, is looking at like our internal load or internal measures of recovery or performance or stress, which is, I think, what some of the stuff you were alluding to, Cozzy. And, you know, there's a lot of different ways of looking at that as well. I can go into some of the ways, I think, but I'm keen to hear from you guys first. One, Foz, what you look at from the monitoring with your runners, and Cozzy, some of the data that you think is valuable, and then I'll give you my thoughts as well.
For sure. No, I mean, for the long run, I think there's a few things you want to look at. First of all, like where you're doing your run. Is it on hills? You know, like that plays an important factor. And also, are you keeping it easy as well? Like if you're pushing too hard and you're doing it on hills, and you know the speed is a bit quicker than you used to, you're going to need a bit more recovery time. So that plays a really important part. Like HR data is important, but a lot of the time I like to tell my athletes to go off feel. So if it's an easy run, just take it easy. Like there's no need to sort of push anything. You'll know, especially if you've had a session and you're doing an easy run the next day, you'll know if you're pushing it too hard. And yeah, I think from what you've told me in the past as well, Ky, is having those deload weeks too. When you are building, I think that's a really important measure. I feel like there's not enough of that at the moment in terms of coaching athletes, is to have those reduced weeks. So yeah, but I think everyone varies differently as well. So you really need to kind of look at people's lifestyles and how they're performing outside of running as well.
Yeah, there's a few bits in that are nice. I mean, the individualization is vital, and it's why, you know, I think running coaches have a huge role with athletes, because if you look at a lot of the online stuff and the online AI plans and all this sort of stuff, it's not necessarily individualized, right? A lot of that stuff is kind of semi-individualized, or it's generalized, and so I think that's super important, because everyone responds differently. All three of us listening today could do the same session or the same plan, and it would be completely different results and completely different needs. So I think that's important. And then the other thing you mentioned was at the start, a session, a same distance session can look completely different depending on how you set it up. And that is where our other points of data become really important. You mentioned heart rate. You mentioned the subjective assessment, which can be the feel. It can be something you have a quantitative measure like RPE for. But yeah, super important, I think. What do you reckon, Cozzy? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was just thinking about it from another perspective as well. Like, I mean, for me personally, my favorite bits of data that I kind of work well with some of the ones that you mentioned, Foz. So I look at something like HRV, so heart rate variability, and resting heart rate. And so especially coming off the marathon, the marathon is probably the biggest one for central nervous system fatigue, because you can fry yourself pretty badly if you're going for a max effort. And it's interesting because you mentioned those long runs. It's because that you get that cumulative load under fatigue is really what rinses you, because you can bounce back from a 10K or even a half marathon, because you just don't have that same cumulative load under fatigue. Because the thing with the marathon is the marathon doesn't just fatigue you locally, it fatigues your central nervous system, it fatigues your fuel system. So there's just a lot of other variables. So the reason why, like for me personally, and specifically at this moment, like I'm now 3 weeks, just over 3 weeks, under 3 weeks post, and I'm back to some decent load. So I'm paying attention to HRV and resting heart rate, because that tells me if my nervous system's ready for speed work, you know, because now we're all talking about prepping for short distance events, and you guys haven't come off a marathon recently, whereas I have. So I've stepped it back and gone further away rather than racing straight away. So for me now, I'm like looking at those. I looked at those data points last week, and I'm just, you know, watch heart rate variability, like especially I use a Garmin. and resting heart rate, the actual numbers are not necessarily always perfect, but the trends are the things that I follow. So I was conscious of, say, those two because they were trending down last week because I'd added load without specific speed sessions. And so I was like, oh, I need to get my resting heart rate. I want to see that dropping before I decide to do a speed session. I want to see heart rate variability start to trend up because that tells me my nervous system's ready to recruit muscle fibers to get my fuel and that I'm primed for speed work. And it was funny because I called Foz on Tuesday night. Because the numbers trended, my heart rate variability trending up, resting heart rate down, and I said I think I'm ready for speed. So I did a 10, but we'll get into training weeks. But I called him after the session and it was like I felt like I was like, bouncing along. So to me, that I feel like that's a really good trifecta, like including the RPE as well, because then even in that session, because those two markers were trending up and then down for the resting heart rate, it told me my nervous system was ready, and then the performance in the session was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. RPE actually didn't feel that high because nervous system and locally my muscles were ready to feel that speed again. So that's definitely the metrics I focus on, and I guess evidence is in the performance. So
I was going to say,
oh, you go, Coz.
No, I was going to say, I know you like this one as well, Ky, but sleep is, I really think there's something with it, especially if you are trying to get to a different level. The sleep part is so important. Like you can have some average night sleeps, but I don't know if you're going to be able to perform, like at sort of where you want to get to as well. And then having those rest days too. You just to get some energy back. Like I know most of us, we don't like to rest, right, when we're runners. Like, but I think it's important to have a rest day somewhere during the week. Yeah, great points for both of you. And I think, there's a clinical opinion and learned experience, and also these are both backed by science as well, as both of you are aware. But I think there's a number of different ways and that you can kind of monitor how your body's going, and the heart rate side of things does give you data on how your body's responding to either at rest or responding to effort. And Kozzy, you mentioned both of these, but I think obviously post a race, or if you're in a zone where you're concerned about overtraining potentially, typically that's where we're looking at your easy pace heart rate. And, I know with myself, with, runners that I'll work with, that if they're doing the easy runs and the heart rate is a lot higher during your easy race run pace, that's a sign that, something's going on. Usually it's nervous system fatigue, or you haven't physically recovered from previous sessions. And the example of that is, a poor night's sleep. And there's some studies to show this. The next day your effort will be higher. You'll have a reduced time to exhaustion. Some of your muscle damage markers will be changed, and things like your heart rate and your your mental ability to push through fatigue will be affected, right? So there's lots of different considerations. Foz, you mentioned sleep. Sleep's when we recover mentally, physically. There's a lot of science to back that up, and there's science to say that if our sleep's poor, we'll get injured. We'll have a higher risk of getting injury, and a worse risk of worse performance. And conversely, if we have good sleep, or we top up with sleep, if we haven't had a good night's sleep, it's going to improve our performance and improve our recovery and outcomes. So there's lots of bits in that. And then some people get really in depth with monitoring the data, but I think the stuff I use with athletes, and we're lucky with some of the systems we've got to monitor it, but sleep's really important. Muscle soreness, or just how your body's feeling. And there's a few people online that kind of talk about, are you irritable? What's your mood like? What are you just a bit sore? Are you a bit stiff? And you can grade these out of 10. And then looking at your heart rate and how you're recovering from a physical standpoint. So there's lots of different bits you can pull at. But you probably want to be monitoring something as a runner, right? Typically a training load, and then some measure of how you're recovering and how you're performing, whether it be heart rate, whether it be a subjective score. Because if you're kind of just running on feel purely,
I love it, but we got to hold runners back from themselves sometimes. That's where Foz and myself come in. Sometimes we got to, runners will train through a lot. They'll push through a lot, and sometimes you just got to hold them back off themselves. So, and what do you reckon?
No, sometimes, right?
Yeah. Oh, mate, that's the worst bit of the job. As a physio, I'm very pro keeping people running, right? I mean, every runner's got that horrible fear of being told to stop running, but unfortunately, sometimes you got to hold people back off themselves for the greater good.
So, if there was one data metric, Ky, you'd say like, yeah, this is follow this one. What would it be? Like for Cozzy, if he was looking at his watch right now, what would be the number one?
Or I think it's one metric's hard. I'll answer the question, but one metric is hard because I think none of them necessarily give you all the information you want. For the running, I really like the heart rate in an easy run because that is a sign of if your heart rate's really high for an easy run. Or in your warm up for a run, is a sign that maybe your body isn't recovering as well as it should. And then I keep a big eye on sleep and stress as additional measures. And if the sleep and stress are not great, things that I consider around programming or around injury or performance management side of things. And then they're probably the ones. Subjective RPE, the heart rate stuff is a lot.
Nice.
I think one thing to add to that as well is like if you have the luxury of being able to have some fluidity around your training. So if you do have feel a real need to sleep in, and I know that I did that on Tuesday where I just actually felt a bit rinsed after my long run on the weekend, and I had a big day on Monday at work. So sometimes like feeling like, I've got to put that alarm on for 5:30 a.m. to get to my session and it's already 10:30. And then you create that stress loop in your head of like, I've got to get up. And then you're thinking about getting up and then you have a poor sleep and then you try and back that up by doing the session and you do it poorly. So sometimes I think if you have the luxury of being able to have that fluidity of being like, you know what, actually I'm going to go to sleep in, go to work and postpone the session to the evening. That's been something that I've been bringing into my training, and I know that that's been really beneficial in just being able to get that extra hour or 2 hours of sleep, and then not feeling that training stress. And then the added benefit of doing it in the evening, especially if you're doing a workout, is now you're fueled. Your muscle elasticity is actually better in the evening. So, like, there's advantages to that as well, and that's something that I definitely would say to runners, if you can have a bit of fluidity rather than being I know that I was in the past very rigid around the training just because I had to get it done at that point, and I know it's not always available to everyone, but something I think
with that too, cause I don't know about both of you what your preference is for morning or afternoon sessions, but nervous system wise, our nervous system is typically primed a little bit later in the day. I mean, obviously a lot of runners, and I fall into this boat, you both do as well. You need to get some running in early in the day to get it done pre-work. And when none of us are elite athletes, unfortunately, and have the luxury to do a 10 a.m. or a 2 p.m. session every week, where it'd be prime window. But I think my preference in an optimum world is that early afternoon session, or that the late afternoon session in summer. I find is when I'm freshest. If I'm really going to hit a hard session, I don't know about you guys. If you've got a preference in a perfect scenario.
I've always run in the mornings unless I'm doing doubles, but. Yeah, it's so tricky. I mean, if you're doing it before work and you've got a session, and I never used to eat, but now I try and eat now. So you end up trying to force food down and get a coffee in, and you're not feeling 100%. Whereas the afternoon you're always feeling that little bit more alert. Even when I do weight training in the afternoon, I feel like I can lift heavier too. Like I've got more energy. So it'd be interesting to see what the performance would be like if we were to swap it round. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a good segue, Foz. You are both prepping for Lakeside 10k. So what's your week been like this week? What have you been doing? Are you tapering off? And what's the goal? Let's have a little conversation about that.
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to sort of run through the week so far?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So on Sunday, I actually had a catch up with Andy on the phone. So basically, excuse me, to put a plan in for Lakeside on Sunday, and then also to sort of go through the next 10 weeks for Melbourne Marathon. So pretty excited. It's coming around quickly, but it's been very much a taper week. So I just did like an hour on Monday, about 13k, which was just around the corner here, and then I went down to the track on Tuesday. And did some 400 reps. So I did I think it was about 10 400 reps, kind of around sort of 3 to 5k pace. So I was sort of hitting like 245-ish per K for those reps. It felt pretty strong. Pretty good on that. Wednesday, just did an hour. So a lot more reduced than I'd normally do. I normally do sort of 75 minutes plus. And then today I did another mini session rather than the Friday. So I did 3 by K, kind of did 305, and then 3 minutes. And then I did 3 by 300, just some sort of like faster stuff. And that was around Caulfield Park, right next to Athletes Edge, actually. I actually ran past this morning because I was going to see if I could see you in the window, but you'd probably think you were out the back or something. So, so that was pretty good. And then, I've got like an easy sort of 10 to 12K tomorrow. And then I'll be doing like a little shakeout on Saturday, maybe like 25 minutes or something.
And so what's the drop in volume like this week? For it's not a marathon or a half marathon. So how much volume did you drop in comparison to previous weeks, and what kind of volume have you been doing the last month?
Yeah, sure. So the last month or so has been around that sort of 100K mark. There was a couple of weeks where I was a bit sick, so it was reduced a bit there. This week will probably be about 10K less, so it is very much a little drop. But the reason being from next week onwards is basically marathon training. So, midweek long run's going to be 90 minutes. Sunday long run's going to be, 2.5 hours pretty much. So Andy really wants to ramp things up and obviously be a bit sensible about it too. And then probably the week after start to introduce some doubles for Melbourne. The marathon sort of workouts are going to be on the Friday. So, it's going to be an interesting 10 weeks. I'm super keen, and with the help of Ky, going to get to that sort of Melbourne Marathon feeling good.
Exciting, mate. Exciting. And Ky, what about you? What's your training week been like this week? What kind of volume have you been doing? I've been seeing some of your sessions out at AP, but let's hear about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so look, a little bit different than Foz. My volume's probably about half of what his is, and I've for those that have been kind of following along personal life, I've got a 6-month-old, and I'm very much in the throes when we're talking about sleep and understanding the impact in that on your life. I'm in the throes of the impact of that on training, and also recognizing that on my system. And I suppose the last 2 weeks with the business kicking off and, sleep being affected at home, my training has been suboptimal from what I was hoping, and probably the maybe month beforehand. I put in a really good month in the lead up to the start of July. And so I suppose I've been realistic from my sense, and also smart about not going too hard with the volume. But I did my long run last week on Saturday, and then another run on Sunday for a few extra Ks. And I've just been really fatigued from the week. And so I didn't do a session this week on Wednesday or Thursday like I normally did. I did 75 minutes on Tuesday, and then I did just 45 minutes yesterday rather than my session that I'd normally do, and just recognizing that the system probably wasn't what it's at. Sorry, 75 minutes this morning. It's a blur in the days. And then I may do a few extra Ks on Saturday morning, just spin the legs, probably just 5 Ks max. I'll try and get about 40 for the week, including the race, maybe 45. But my goal, I'm going for nothing near Foz. I'm going to try and get something with 35 something would be my goal. So, I'm being realistic that I might hold the pace for 5 or 6 Ks and then tail off a bit with the fatigue in the system. We'll see. It's a good case study for the impact of sleep and stress on the system, I think.
Hey,
What's
Ky,
your
I was just gonna say, I know you've had so much going on. The new business, Luca, like it's crazy to think that you're able to do some of the things that you can do, whilst training as well. How are you feeling, sort of in comparison to when we were up in Ballarat for the 10k there? Because I know that was such a hot day and you got such a good result. So, like, how does it compare to, say, Lakeside this Sunday?
So that's where I'm somewhat optimistic, despite the system stress, I suppose. I mean, obviously, anyone who raced at Ballarat, we're all up there at Ballarat. It was a hot day. It was windy. It was a lot tougher than everyone expected, and I'd probably only done 2 months of good training in the lead up to that. And so I ran a PB of 36:57, which I was stoked with. And probably felt like I had a bit more to give, and the conditions, I was very pleased with it, but I maybe felt there was a little bit left out there on a better day. And I think the forecast for Sunday looks pretty good. So it's going to be cool. It's going to be flat and fast. So, and obviously, as you mentioned, Foz, the lineup in the field is lightning, right? There's going to be a crazy amount of good runners out there. So I'm hoping that drags me through a little bit. And I did put in a really good kind of probably 3 to 4 week blocks of really good sessions in the lead up to July, where I was, doing a lot of good 5 and 10k sort of 10k work. So I'm hoping that holds me in good stead, despite a prolonged taper of 2 weeks that I hadn't planned, just because of what life throws at you. So, we'll wait and see. I'm going to go out hard and hold on, and we'll see.
There should be some good energy down there. Like you're in this vortex of like all these rapid runners that, you'll get dragged along even if you don't want to, in that sense. So
just chasing your dust, mate. That's what it'll be. Just
chasing the duck dust.
training week for me. So what did I do this week? So this was kind of my first week back, post Gold Coast, first week back of sessions. So Tuesday, 10 by 600s, progressive. So I kind of did 4 or 5 around 348-ish to 350. And then I was feeling really good. And so I just kind of like dropped the hammer on the last kind of 4 or 5 and was down like low 340s into 330s for those 6s. So that they felt really good. And that was, did that out on the Bay Trail, just out the front of the St Kilda Sea Baths. So some were like into the headwind, some were with it. And
you didn't, Cozzy, you didn't go hard with the wind and just walk back and just make it feel really good with it.
I think it was only about
the big outward breeze behind you.
20k. It was only about 20k, so it wasn't like gale force or anything. But and then so I've had a pair of Vaporfly 4s that I hadn't worn yet. I've had them for like months. They were just sitting in the cupboard that I just hadn't pulled them out, and I wore those for the first time. And like, I know I'm late to the party because they've been all around for quite a long time, but just feeling that spring and the fresh foam just was like, I didn't feel like I was putting in much effort. So that was nice. And then Wednesday, easy, but I actually felt a little bit fatigued because I'd gone quite hard on the 6s, and obviously after not having done a workout for probably 3 weeks, and still, probably carrying a little bit of central fatigue from the marathon. So then, felt a bit fatigued, and then did 2 by 15 minutes progressive today. So like 5 at kind of float, 5 at marathon, 5 at half marathon. And funnily, we were talking about heart rate. I noticed that after my first set, heart rate was struggling to drop during the second round. Like even in my float, it was already kind of in thresholdy zone, like on the edge of tempo into thresholdy zone, and that kind of redlined throughout that last set. Which to me just kind of said, yeah, like two things I think played into that. Obviously carrying a bit of fatigue from Tuesday, and then it was also very cold this morning. And, sometimes that cold air and the dry air can actually crank heart rate up because your heart's working harder to keep you warm alongside the fatigue. So because I felt all right, RPE was quite high, but still felt like I could push. But I originally had planned to go marathon, half marathon, 10k pace, but just based on how I was feeling, I just shuffled it around a little bit so that I wasn't pushing into that kind of. Otherwise I would have redlined for the whole thing today if I'd done that. So it was a good adjustment, I felt. So that then I'm not going into the weekend or, tonight, even going to sleep with like a high amount of CNS fatigue. So, and
What's your long run look like, Cozzy, for this week? Or what are you doing a long run, or what is your total distance?
It'll just probably be maybe 75 minutes. I'm just trying to hit. For me at the moment, like Foz and I were chatting about it, just trying to raise my baseline mileage. But over the week, and I know you and I were speaking about that last week, just trying to get the baseline mileage up, but just gradually, like not going crazy. So trying to get it up, baseline up to kind of that 65 to 70, without a huge long run in there. So just getting in some Ks throughout the week rather than like smash. I don't need to do a 35k long run unless I'm in a marathon block. So, and that won't be for a while. So. Just trying to get the baseline up, just, for the things that we were speaking about so that, tendons can gradually handle more, muscles can gradually handle more, knees are gradually handling more. Because like you said, it's when you do those ramp ups that the tendons and the joints feel it the most. Cardiovascular system absorbs it pretty easily, but the rest is what sometimes can fall apart because running picks on the weak links. So so feeling good.
Where'd you do
just
the
focusing
session
on sleep
today? The 15 minutes?
Today it was windy, so I went to Caulfield Park. Oh, sorry, not Caulfield Park, Elstonwick Park, which is quite actually deceivingly hilly. If you've ever done sessions around there, it does get it's a bit of up and down. So and there was still a bit of wind around, but I had the luxury of being able to get up a bit later because we had the teacher strike today for the AEU public school teacher strike. So I got up a bit later and was able to train later. So
more strikes, later sessions by the sound of
it. Yeah. That's it. So yeah, that's my week, and I'm not racing until August 30 at Brighton Beach 10k. So yeah, so just building for that, and nice to get some speed in.
You don't need to do too much mileage, like for the tank. Like you can
no.
Lot. Yeah.
Yeah, mate. So look, segueing into our regular segment, we're just bringing this one in. We brought this in last week, Ky. So quick fire around the trio. What's been your win of the week this week? Big, small. What's been a win of the week for you, Ky?
Oh, I'm having a lot of good wins at the moment, just with the business and the space and life. So, and I love this segment because one of the things I've started trying to do this year is celebrate big wins, celebrate small wins. Life flies by really quickly, and if you don't kind of stop to celebrate some of these moments, I think they fly by. So, look, I think one of the ones that stands out for me, and every runner and athlete that I see, I'm eternally grateful for. But I had a runner this week travel down from Ballarat to come and see me for an assessment. And, I get runners come from the other side of the city and come from around. But I think, so the fact that someone wanted to come down from, an hour and a half away to come and see me for an assessment, there's a lot of good professionals around. And so for me, that was probably my win of the week, to be able to, impart some, wisdom and impart some knowledge and hopefully help out this runner with some of their goals. So, a lot of wins in the last few weeks, but that was the one that stands out for me.
Hey, that's incredible. From Ballarat.
Mate, I was very very humbled. I think, as I said, there's a lot of good people out there and a lot of good physios and health professionals, and the fact that they wanted to come down and see me, they're very humbled.
Amazing, mate.
Fozzie, what about you?
Mine was, it's been, I think I've been telling you about this, Cozzy. I think I told you as well, Ky, but I handed in my resignation for my current job today, which means I'm starting a new job on the 3rd of August. So, yeah, pretty excited. Going to be a bit of a change, bit of a challenge. But I'm pumped. I'm kind of keen. It's kind of coming all at the same time with Melbourne Marathon. So, really excited for it.
Congrats on that, mate. That's huge.
That's so good, mate. That means you get to train pro hours for 10 days.
Well, I'm actually working up until the 31st of July. So
okay. So you get 3 days of pro hours then.
Pretty much, yeah. I'll take that. Yeah. What's yours?
Oh, that's good. My win of the week. I'm gonna give, so my favorite win over the last 7 days was probably I was at the prom over the weekend. I know I mentioned this to both of you already, but the prom is my favorite place in the whole world. I proposed to Jess there. I've been going there for like 15 years, and just being able to be there out in nature with family. But I got to do a couple of runs, and just to be in that environment, is just amazing. And if anyone listening has never been, it's definitely something I recommend to get there. Either camp, stay in cabins at Tidal River. Either way, it's one of the most beautiful places in the whole world, and I can't recommend it highly. So that's my win of the week.
Yeah, second that. Prom is amazing. How good's the prom?
Can you run on Squeaky Beach? Is that possible?
You can, yeah. So you can run if like you're camping or staying at Tidal River. You can run along there's a coastal trail that goes from Tidal River, and you go up and over Pillar Point, and you can make your way across to Squeaky, and you can run it. You can do it as a trail run. Yeah,
nice. I'll have to give that a go one day, I reckon.
It's amazing. Yeah. Any books, podcasts, any media that's stood out for you guys over the last couple of weeks?
Ky, you got anything?
Look, to be brutally honest, my head's been buried in business planning, and I've got a couple of books. I've got a kind of a philosophical one around kind of parenting and around, the philosophical thing around curious minds, and I've got that sitting on the shelf. I've got a kind of a slam poetry book sitting on the bookshelf, and I've got a kind of a marketing yourself and a market your business side of things sitting on the shelf, and I haven't really touched any of them. So from that side of things, I might have to come back to you once things calm down a bit and I've actually opened the pages of a few of these books. But keen to hear from you guys.
For me personally, I've stayed away from the kind of non-fiction for a little bit because for a similar reason, I just find sometimes I just have no bandwidth to take in more. So I've actually been reading. Have you guys heard of The Witcher? So there's a Netflix series. There's also a game. I'm a gamer as well. So I'm playing the game, reading the book, and I just finished watching the show for a second time. So I haven't read the books before, so I'm in like book 4. So I'm really enjoying that. It's like fantasy kind of witches and dragons, and so if anyone's interested in that, The Witcher is a really good, easy read. But that's kind of been on my bedside table at the moment.
Nice.
What about you, Fozzie?
Yeah, I'm almost finished reading. It's a book by Ross Edgley called The Art of Resilience. I think I've brought it up before, but he's basically, the book's about him swimming around the whole of the UK.
He's an absolute freak.
he's a machine, and it's a fascinating story. It's very stoic based, but there's a really good part in the book where he talks about he's swimming on like the top of Scotland, and there's all these jellyfish in the water, and he just has to swim through them, for hours on end. And he gets off and he gets in the boat, and he's just got these jellyfish all over his face, and it's fascinating. Like I don't know how you can be in the water that long. Like he'd do like 6 hours on, 6 hours off, like just a freak, pure endurance.
Right. But I think stuff like that shows you, like, I always find when you hear these stories or you read these stories, you see the documentaries, and that how powerful like your human mind can be in some of these situations, right? Like it really shows us that probably most of us aren't at that 100% capacity of, to push yourself, right? That if people can do these really extreme things, and a lot of us are, even if we're pushing ourselves to the edge of our comfort zone, there's probably a fair bit further to go, or that we can go if we wanted to. So it's amazing.
I'd recommend, if you've got like 10 minutes, YouTube Ross Edgley Great British Swim. It just gives you like a brief clip, but it's just insane, like the footage of what he does. But very positive person as well. Like he's always like really positive, and interesting guy.
Love it.
That.
Well, mate, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, Ky. Now, if anyone wants to reach out, Ky, do you want to give us a few of your handles and where people can reach you and reach the business?
Yeah, look, thanks for having me, guys. And I like, as I said at the start, love the new format. I always love talking running. So if anyone wants to chew my ear off with running, please do. You can follow me on kind of all platforms, primarily Instagram, but at Ky Wynne Physio. And then the business at Athletes Edge Physio. And just there's a lot, I share a lot of information online for free. I talk philosophically about things, but also share a lot of educational information, and through the business, relevant for runners. We've got a lot of free in-person and online educational kind of events and that coming up. So there may be some stuff there for some of the listeners that might be interested as well. But I appreciate having you guys having me on, and always good to have a chat about running.
Love it, mate. And to the listeners out there, if you want to reach out to Ky, or you want to reach out to us as well, if you've got any questions that you want us to discuss in upcoming episodes, you can reach us at the rundiariespod@gmail.com, or you can reach out on Instagram to either one of us, at Cozzy Nick or at Forrest Robinson, or at the Run Diaries pod on Insta. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Thanks again, Ky, and we'll be back very soon.
Thanks, Ky.
Cheers, guys.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.